Hey COR 109 tutors. So this video is to take you guys through the process of looking for your students' workbook submissions and so that you can have a look at their peer and self-assessment. So obviously this is your Blackboard site, and just come across here to the PebblePad login link. You may not have logged into your own account yet, so just come on in this way if you haven't already done it. And click here and take you straight into your Pebble account, exactly the same way that the students would go into theirs. Now, it may have asked you in that process to verify your pop-ups. If you've got pop-ups blocked, that's just a browser thing. Do remember that you are operating in a browser-based software package, so things like making sure you've got the most up-to-date software is important, and making sure that you don't have making sure you don't have pop-ups blocked. Is also really important. So those could be a couple of reasons if it doesn't work for you. Just go back and check those things. So you should open up into your PebblePad account. Yours may have a kangaroo in it, or I've customized mine, so that's why you see my lizard here. So what you want to do now is that you're going to go into Atlas. At this point in time, you don't really need to do anything in the Pebble Plus space itself. You really just need to come up here into the Atlas space, and that's the Active Teaching, Learning and Assessment space. So once you click on the Atlas icon, it will open a new tab in your browser. Depending on what browser you're using, they operate a little differently. Sometimes if you're on the university system and it's Internet Explorer, you might find you've got to come down to your dock, I guess it is, down the bottom of your screen. But just depending on which browser you're using, they'll open in different ways. So you'll just have to assess that as you're using it. So what's happened in mine is you can see that it's opened in a separate window right next to my Pebble window that I was just in. So now what I need to do, now you guys will probably only see your COR 109 Task 3 workbook space. You won't have all the other ones visible as you're not part of those workspaces. So just come along and click here in your dashboard to that workbook space, and you'll see your About page. And then you need to come to Submissions. So click on that link, and it brings up all the submissions for all of the workbooks for all of the students. And obviously that's not something you need to be scrolling through all of the submissions. So what we've set up for you is to filter into your own sets. So when you come here to this drop-down menu, you will only be able to see your own tutes. Now, I can't show an example of that because the way that I'm logged in, it actually shows me everybody's. But do trust me, unless you're an associate lecturer and you've got course coordinator permission, you'll see all of them, but for the majority of you, you'll only be able to see your own tutes in this list. So you'll be able to fairly easily pick the tutorial group that is pertinent to what you want to be marking. So when you bring up your set, you'll be able to see obviously the names of the students who've submitted that particular workbook. And it's really just a matter now of looking for those students who have submitted in your particular group. Okay, so for the purposes of being able to show you some of that have been filled in, because obviously the student ones haven't filled theirs in as yet at the time that the video is being made. So I've set up a kind of a sandpit area to show you how they would look. So while I flick over to this, there we go. So there's some in here. So this is an exact replica of the workbook in another workspace, so I can just show you how you'd find it. So again, as you saw, come to Submissions, you'd choose your tutorial group, which would be just here, and you'll see your students. So I know that there's only 3 here, which makes it fairly easy to select, but we just choose the 3 or however many students are in the group, and as you can see, it's opening up a new tab at the top of the browser window each time I open one of those workbooks. So there's that one. Come back to the beginning and open the third one. So for the purposes of this video, these are my 3 students' workbooks up here across the top in the tabs. And these are the students that I'm going to mark or have a look at their peer and self-reflection. So I just want to start with my first student so I don't get myself confused. And I'll click on their peer and self-assessment tab, and then come to their self-evaluation first. And I can see how they rated themselves, just one quick scroll, that they rate themselves down there at the 23. Then I can see, right, how does that person rate Jane? 21. And how does this person rate Sally as a 15? So the data in all of these examples is exactly the same. However, you can imagine that if you had 3 different students, you would have 3 different entries here. And you just need to tab across, clicking on the self or the group member that you need to look at. So as you can see, once you've got them all sitting here side by side, it's a fairly easy process to go through and just have a look. Yep, that correlates. And the third group member, and yep, they're all thinking roughly the same thing about each other. If you wanted to put them side by side, and if you had some fairly large real estate on your screen, you can actually drag the windows out and then move them to sit side by side if you wanted to. I think that perhaps becomes a bit confusing. You've got windows all over the place, but I know that some tutors were interested in doing it this way when I was doing the tutor training. So I just thought I'd show how that could look. You can drag them out and look at them side by side. However, it just depends on the way you get used to it. And I personally think that flicking between the tabs at the top, once you're used to it, it's a fairly easy way to work. But again, obviously there's more than one way to do it. So just find a method that works really well for you. So that's probably all you need to do with this workbook. It's really just to inform, obviously, the rest of the marks that you're giving them for the assessment as a total. So you don't necessarily need to enter any grades or any feedback into this system at this point in time. It's really just for you to use diagnostically or to have a look and just to make sure that the feedback is correlating between the group members. So you can come along and close down the tabs, and then when you get back to your Atlas workspace, either grab another 2, 3 or 4 members of another group and repeat the process, and once you finish your tutorial group, move on into another tutorial group. And there you have it, using your Atlas working space for looking at your peer and self-assessment for your tutorial groups.